I'm Shaun Haney, and this is RealAg on the Weekend. Let's get real and get connected with the week that was in Canadian agriculture. RealAg on the Weekend starts now. Welcome to RealAg on the Weekend here on 650 CKOM and 980 CGME. I'm your host, Shaun Haney of RealAgriculture. It is great to be with you here on this weekend edition, of course, of the show where we break down kind of some of the big stories of the week, try to catch up in the week that was and sort of look ahead to what is in front of us in the world of agriculture. Hope everybody's had themselves a great week. Encourage you here over the weekend to check out RealAgriculture.com, where we have all great content dedicated to this industry that we all love so much. And if you want to get it in your inbox every morning, we have a free newsletter that sent out every morning. Great way to drink the cup of coffee and catch up on all things agriculture. You can find that at realagriculture.com/subscribe. Okay, so what's in store for us here today? I was busy all week. I was at Grow Canada, which is what we used to call the Crop Life meeting. And industry participants from across the country, the industry, there was lots of farmers there. It was really, really, really fantastic. Caught up with lots of Real Agriculture fans. And it was a lot of fun. We'll talk about that a little bit here today on the program. We're also going to hear today, we're going to talk about what I have going on next week, is I'll be in Regina, Saskatchewan for the APAS meeting. We're also going to talk here today a little bit about the impact potentially that autonomy is going to have on your farming operation. The panel that I hosted at Grow Canada this week talked about Farming 4.0, and autonomy was a part of that. And we're also going to then maybe finish up with some fun. I was talking to Mossbank, Saskatchewan farmer Sherilyn Nagel. She was a guest on RealAg Radio this week, and we were talking about hunting. And I don't want to spoil for you, but I want to dive into that a little bit and talk about some of the best fall family activities. And because I think hunting is definitely one of them. But I've got a sort of a secret to tell you, and well, stay tuned for that. Okay, if you have any feedback on today's show, we'd love to hear from you. shaney@realagriculture.com is my email address. Or, of course, you can call the RealAg feedback line. That is 855-776-6147. And, of course, as well, you can find us across all the different social media applications. So I mentioned next week I'm going to be in Regina. Looking forward to it. APAS is having their AGM, Saskatchewan's General Farm Organization. Ian Boxall and the group have invited us to do a live broadcast, a live taping of RealAg Radio at the event. So I'm looking forward to it. So if you haven't planned yet to go to the meeting, please do so, and make sure you say hello, as I'm going to be there for the whole day there on Tuesday. Now the show that we're going to do is dedicated to the carbon tax. I don't know if there's a more, I was going to say contentious, but is it contentious? I'm not really sure. I think Saskatchewan pretty much made their feelings felt. Now, there are people in Saskatchewan that I think are in favor of the carbon tax. I'm not going to say it's 100% or against it, but as a majority, the province has really been against the federal carbon tax. And I think January 1st, we're going to see some changes in terms of how SaskPower, will the Saskatchewan government, I guess not a question of will they, but they're no longer going to be collecting the carbon tax on some of the home heating. So and this is a real, I got to give it, Saskatchewan is very bold in its pushback on the carbon tax. And it basically, hey, listen, the exemption that the federal government gave to the Atlantic provinces, I think, is sort of reignited the pushback after some of the Supreme Court losses that the government of Saskatchewan faced. From my mind, I think the tide is changing in terms of how Canadians view the carbon tax. I think that, when times are lofty, we become complacent. It's kind of human nature. And I think we're not in lofty times right now. Okay? So at one point where, if you do believe that a price on carbon is the way to reduce people's usage of certain technologies, then you'd be more willing to do that during lofty times. When things get tight and there's a lot of focus right now on affordability, I know there's going to be some that are like, you know what, it's the right thing to do. We got to save our future. We need to save the environment. We need to deal with this climate crisis. I'm still willing to pay. I think for a lot of Canadians, though, what they're saying is, yeah, I got to buy groceries today. Doesn't mean I'm not concerned about the climate tomorrow, but today I got to buy groceries. Today I got to keep a roof over my head. Today I got to keep the lights on. And I think that's sort of the wind of change that we are seeing in Canada right now. I think it was Abacus Data, David Coletto. I'm attributing this to him, so if I have it wrong, I apologize. But there was some data out last week talking about how the Canadians now believe not only are they more in support politically of the Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre, but they also now believe that the Conservatives have a better environmental plan, a better policy when it comes to dealing with climate change. That is quite a reversal. Think back to where we were when Saskatchewan's Andrew Scheer or Aaron O'Toole was a leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. That is not how Canadians felt. In fact, the Conservatives were continually hounded for where is your plan to deal with climate change. Now, look where we are. And affordability is a part of it. I think, I really do believe this exemption that was given in Atlantic provinces is truly a crack in terms of what the future is for the carbon tax. South of the border in the U.S., there is no carbon tax. Now, are they still dealing with climate change? Is the Biden administration still looked as being serious about dealing with climate change and having environmental priorities? Well, of course they are, right? But the federal government in Canada has attached themselves so strongly, so swiftly to that if you're going to be serious about climate change, you have to believe in a price in carbon. And I think Canadians are starting to see through that a little bit. I really do. I believe that the time may be up for the Liberals in general, but I think time's kind of ticking here on their ability to stay so committed to this carbon tax. Now, at the same time, we see 234, Bill C-234, which has been stuck in the Senate. This is the bill that would basically say, like, hey, you've got a poultry barn in Saskatchewan. You will be exempted from the carbon tax on heating that barn. People that have grain dryers, you'll be exempted from having to pay a carbon tax on the natural gas or the propane that you're using to run that grain dryer. It's been passed in the House. It has bipartisan support. Even the Greens and the NDP have supported it. No, Liberals are against it. In fact, our own Minister of Agriculture has voted against it, which is that's towing the party line. It's been stuck in the Senate. It's trying to find a way through, and it is really kind of the Liberals showing, I think, disdain for the industry, really showcasing that they can't get their head wrapped around what. It's not about the fact that farmers are not saying they're anti-climate policies or environment. No, they're not concerned about the environment. This is basically saying there are no other alternatives. I can't have a solar-powered grain dryer. Now, some of the responses, though, I get from some of the audience at Real Agriculture once in a while is, you know what? Yeah, there's no solar-powered grain dryers, but maybe you shouldn't be growing crops in those areas that would require a grain dryer in the first place. This is the length to which some of these people will go to sort of push forward their agenda. It's very, very concerning and disheartening, and shows you the lack of it. People just don't really understand our industry of agriculture. I've said multiple times in many speeches that Saskatchewan is kind of that last bastion where I think the province of Saskatchewan does understand agriculture. People in Saskatchewan, I think, are more connected to the industry of agriculture than any other province. I really do believe that. Even more, even compared to Alberta. I live in Alberta. Okay? Born and raised in southern Alberta. I'm in Saskatchewan all the time. But I believe that there's much more of a connection to the industry of agriculture in Saskatchewan than there is in other provinces. And you need to keep that up, indeed. So next week at the APAS meeting, we're going to talk about the carbon tax and the impact that it has on farms across the province. and why people in Saskatchewan feel so strongly the way they do. And hey, if you do have an opinion on this, and you're sitting here listening to this, I encourage you to reach out to me, shaney@realagriculture.com, or you can call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. Let me know how you feel about the carbon tax and the impact that it has had on the industry of agriculture. Let's take a break. We'll be back with more of RealAg on the weekend, and of course, you're listening to it on 650 CKOM and 980 CGME.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
You know, there's a reason we call it the Corn School. Videos on everything from planter setup, weed control, field trial results, yield strategies, and so much more. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com has the information and advice you need to help you succeed. Brought to you by Pride Seeds and BASF, Corn School episodes are available at cornschool.com, from realagriculture.com, or as a podcast from your favorite streaming service. Download the latest podcast today.
Yeah, we were just talking about the carbon tax here on RealAg on the weekend. Might as well transition into what's happening at COP28 in Dubai. The first, I want to tell you about Co-op's Grown with Purpose. It recognizes how your farm brings sustainability, agronomics, and safety to our food, community, and environment. What you do matters. Make it count. Contact your local Co-op Grow Team member to learn more. Well, right now over in Dubai, there is there's people from around the world talking about environmental change and climate change and dealing with it and all this kind of stuff. So now there is the attendance at this event has skyrocketed, and the criticism is always been there, and I think this is rightly so, is that this is an event that is about dealing with climate change on the global stage, and the amount of private jets, which are per use, like you think about the emissions or your carbon footprint on what you're doing on your farm or just in your house, and compare that to what some of these people are what their footprint is when it comes to flying privately. It's it's that criticism, I think, is pretty right there. There's 80,000 people that have gone to COP28. So this is something that it's become a very, very popular destination for companies in provinces and states and regions of the world to be involved in the discussion. Now, I think at one time there was a little bit more of an activist flair to this, but now what's happened is that what's ballooned, I think, the attendance is the fact that a lot of people are there to defend, right? To sort of say, like, we can't, if this discussion is going to happen, we need to be a participant in this. We need to make sure that our point of view is being heard. Now, I saw a list. I saw a list here of, I believe we've got 52 companies that are in the Saskatchewan Pavilion at COP28. A lot are like academic. There's a legal. There's like Crop Life International. Some of the crop protection companies, fertilizer, energy. There's a wide list there. So. And once again, some groups probably pushing for change, and some groups fighting for, make sure that our position is heard. I saw the list. Kelvin Hepner and I from Real Agriculture. We're talking about this, and the list that we saw was in a Saskatchewan NDP press release criticizing Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe for having so much representation from out of province. I would need that maybe explained to me why that would be necessarily a problem. But yeah, boy, here's a secret for you. This is big business. There's no question about it. But I think it's a good idea for Premier Moe and other stakeholders to be at a place like COP28. I think there's going to be people out there that would say we shouldn't be there. But by going to an event like this, we're giving legitimacy to the discussion. Well, there's 80,000 people there. If you're not there, you are not a part of the discussion. So I whether you believe in it or not, I think you need. I think it makes sense to be involved. Now, the beef industry in Canada has participated in numerous COP meetings in the past. The Canadian dairy industry, and groups like that as well. To shift really quick before we take another break, it was interesting at Grow Canada this week. I found a little bit less of a discussion around sustainability and a little bit more on other lanes of topic. There was a really interesting presentation from an economist from Rabobank, and it's kind of worth noting. Talk to market analysts all the time with RealAgriculture, always trying to keep the update on what's the latest in sort of the market direction. What's interesting is that the economists there really presented a little bit of a more, I'm not going to say bullish, but defended the upside of the market, which I find, I wouldn't say that's a contrarian play, but definitely I think supported the idea, supported the difficulty of the decision that farmers have at this time, trying to sort out what direction things are going, and how you not only just manage your risk. I think that's a big part of it, and managing that risk is so critical. But it's very, very difficult in such times of uncertainty. On Thursday in the Farmer Rapid Fire, I was talking to a Southern Alberta farmer. His name's Shaun Haney, and we were talking about what's going on the farm this week, like we do every Thursday with different farmers from across Canada. And he said, well, I was at the curling rink last night getting the latest and greatest on what's going on. And I said, so what's the biggest topic? What's the biggest topic at the curling rink? And he said, just the markets. People, we've left that time where the market was going straight up, and we've entered a time where it feels like it's really, really slid. And how do how should I be changing my rotation? Should I be changing my rotation? And for those crops I'm going to grow, what's the best way for me to manage my risk to get on the other side of, these kind of volatile, uncertain times that are in front of us? And, there was a lot of people speculating that we're going to see a deep recession. We've seen the economy slow. Some of the stats can numbers from Friday. We've seen the economy slow, but we haven't seen that deep recession like some were talking about. And I think that's giving a little bit more optimism to what some of the global demand could be for some of the commodities that are out there. But of course, time will tell on that one. Okay, speaking of Grow Canada, I want to take a break. And when we come back, I want to talk about autonomy, because I hosted a panel, and we talked a lot about autonomy and some of the impacts at the farm gate and what it could mean for other stakeholders in the industry. We're going to chat about that when we come back. You're listening to RealAg on the Weekend, here, of course, on 650 CKOM and 980 CGME.
Canola is more than just a pretty face in the prairie landscape. It's a big business, both here and around the world, that requires you to be informed and up to date on everything it takes to grow a successful crop. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com has an expert library of video resources covering markets, agronomy, and more to help you grow a healthy and profitable canola crop. Visit canolaschool.com today. Brought to you by BASF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
The next generation is the future of agriculture, but how do we launch from one role to leading? From succession planning and family dynamics to understanding finances and making the tough calls to discovering paths others have taken all through agriculture, the Successors Podcast covers it all. Tune in with me, your host, Kara Oosterhuis, simply by searching The Successors on your favorite podcast platform, or you can find it by visiting www.realagriculture.com.
Whether you're seeding, harvesting, or anything in between, the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com has you covered. Timely agronomic information from industry experts available online anytime. Give your wheat crop a good start and a great finish with the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com. Brought to you by C&M Seeds, Syngenta Canada, and the Alberta Wheat and Barley Commission.
Seeking professional advice for your farm and business? MNP's team of agriculture specialists cover it all, from business planning and tax guidance to financial projections, farm succession, and risk management. Visit mnp.ca to connect with experts today. Well, at Grow Canada this week in Calgary, I moderated a panel that was it was entitled Farming 4.0. It was we could have had a better title. Anyway, it was really, really interesting. We had Shane Thomas from Upstream Ag, known him for a long time. And we also had the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer with Microsoft Canada on the panel. He talked a lot about artificial intelligence. And we also had representation from John Deere. And we covered a number of different topics. And autonomy was one of them. And there's a whole bunch of different versions of autonomy, what it could possibly look like. Everything from cabless tractors to tractors looking no different than they do today, but they run autonomy. And they've also got the swarm ideas too, where we've got I remember this from Agritechnica going back back to 2019, where AGCO had all these little basically beer coolers, little ice box running all over the place. You got 20 of them going back to a mothership, and then they go out and they plant the corn. There's a bunch of little coolers on four wheels. It was very, very fascinating. So there's lots of different ways that I think potentially this could go, and I think it's honestly all the above. It's not one sort of way. So what I want to do here is I'm going to play a clip for you from our Agritechnica coverage from this past, from a couple weeks ago, okay? And our Agritechnica coverage is brought to you by Optimum Gly and Corteva Agriscience. Big thanks to Corteva for being the sponsor of our Agritechnica coverage. And we did 70 videos in 3.5 days. And you can find all that coverage at realagriculture.com. We're putting up four to five videos a week. And this one went up this week. It is an interview at the John Deere booth talking about one of their autonomous units. Here's the clip.
Bernard Tobin here at Agritechnica for Optimum Gly and Corteva Agriscience. I'm over at John Deere now, catching up with Derek Targerson. Derek, how's it going?
Good morning. I'm well. How are you?
A fellow Canadian, by the way, all the way from Saskatchewan, am I correct?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
You bet. Yep.
We're going to talk about the new John Deere 8RX410 autonomous tractor.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about it, Derek.
So what we have here is our 8RX410 with a autonomy kit on the top of it. So what you're looking at is 6 camera units that are looking out while the tractor is operating in the field without somebody in it.
Now, how much data, how much information are we seeing and processing?
Yeah, so what it is these cameras are picking up not only depth, how far things are away, but also objects in the field that it may not be familiar with. And so every day we're doing something called machine learning, and it's learning and learning and learning, taking these images that it knows, and we're able to identify what it is and if the tractor can continue on.
Yeah, talk about the autonomous element here and how the farmer connects. Where does that information go? And I'm sure the farmers will run off their phone, right?
Yeah, everything is done through our John Deere Operations Center, and everything is done, that's the heartbeat of the system. They're able to go on to John Deere Ops Center, make a path plan, see where their tractor is at all times, and it also is available on the mobile device as well. And that's how they're actually able to start autonomy. It's a simple swipe on their phone, and they'll be able to have the tractor run autonomously.
Now you have these on the ground in the U.S.
Correct.
Talk about, I guess, what you're hearing from farmers. What's the feedback?
So the feedback is they're really happy with the performance and the ability to reallocate their labor. meaning they're outside of the cab, able to do other things on the farm, able to make strategic business decisions, but also take that employee that they have and reallocate them to do something else, whether it's moving a semi, whether it's moving a grain bin, anything that somebody else can do on the farm when they're not in the tractor.
Right. Now, this is a 410 horsepower tractor.
Correct.
How fast or when we see this autonomous approach going through the more tractors for John Deere?
Right. And so what we're doing today is we're doing that machine learning and that processing to make sure that we have a breadth of images collected, and as we get better and learn more, then we'll be able to move to different models of tractors, whether it's the smaller models that John Deere makes or the larger ones as well.
So what about Canada?
So we're getting close to being able to come to the small grains country as well. As I said, we're learning in corn and soy stubble right now, and then as we move to different types of crops, then we'll be able to do that. But we're learning corn and soy first.
Awesome. Derek, thank you for making some time for Real Agriculture at Agritechnica.
That was Bernard Tobin at the John Deere booth at Agritechnica, and of course, again, that coverage is brought to you by Optimum Gly, a new canola trait technology from Corteva Agriscience. So it is fascinating. There's one version of what autonomy could look like, and John Deere's an example, and also an example of where they're working on a multi-pronged approach as well. Like, I don't think anybody has sort of sorted out what autonomy really looks like. One of the biggest issues, though, it was pointed out by Josh from John Deere on that panel this week, is some of the issues around, some of the ideas around like the cabless units, how we transport those from field to field. If I was gonna bet, okay, if we had to lay some money down, I'd probably say that like a 600 horsepower tractor without a cab is not the way it's gonna go. I would vote more to the fact I think farmers are gonna want the flexibility. I really do. And maybe I'm thinking more about the transition period here, but I see more of a situation where, and Kloss was an example at Agritechnica where they have an autonomous unit, but it looks like an actual tractor. And so if the farmer wants to, the farmer can drive it. The operator can be sitting in the cab. Maybe they're not even driving. Maybe it's running autonomously, but they're sitting there doing other things, right? And I'll talk about smart implements. Maybe we'll get into that in future weeks. But if I had to bet, I would think that's the way it's going to go, even more so than even the swarm sort of stuff. I think the swarm technology, where there's like a, like on a sprayer or a planter, where there's a mothership that feeds all these little buddies that go out and do all the work. That feels a little bit, we're not quite there yet. So I actually hope that autonomy does bring the opportunity for smaller units to do things at scale. I think, when you think about compaction as an example, this is an opportunity for us because we're having no problems building things bigger. And at some point we're going to ask ourselves, like how big can some of this stuff get? And autonomy presents the opportunity to maybe do things a little bit differently or change things up or maybe correct some of the weaknesses with the size of some of the equipment that is out there. It was mentioned, labor was mentioned in that video, okay? And I would say this, that a lot of the innovation that we featured, autonomy and other things, it was all dealing with the labor shortage. It's real. It's just not happening in places like Saskatchewan. It's not just happening in Canada. It is happening all over the world. People can't find people to work on the farm. And so one of the ways that we solve that is we try to change up and maybe look at different ways to recruit people onto the farm. Maybe we've got to change that recruitment strategy, and I think that's ongoing. But at the same time, also, what role can technology and innovation play in having less reliance on somebody actually sitting in that cab? And that's really driving a lot of this as well. That was definitely one of the threads of observation that we had at the show this week. And I mentioned smart implements, and so I'll finish up with this before we take a break, is that one of the things that we saw is that a bit of a reversal on the flow of the information, okay? So think about a tractor that's pulling a cultivator, okay? In the traditional sense, the brains was in the tractor. The operator was sitting in the tractor, observing, looking at the environment, paying attention to what needs to have happen, speeding up, slowing down, lowering the cultivator, raising the cultivator. Now, some of you are going to say, why are we tilling in the first place? Just any implement, okay? I'm not pro-tillage here, but I'm just telling you, pulling an implement, okay? In the autonomy situation, that brain in the tractor doesn't exist. So the brains are actually in the implement. And so we've got sensors in that implement, right? So that planter, that seeder, that cultivator, that maybe it's a sprayer that you're pulling behind. That's where the brains are. It's observing what that implement has to do. Then after it does the processing, makes the adjustments, it then gives direction to the tractor in terms of what needs to happen. So the brains of the unit is being driven by the implement, not the other way around in the traditional sense. I found that very, very fascinating. So I encourage you to check out all of our Agritechnica coverage. We've got tons of videos coming. We've even got a hydrogen-powered tractor video. That's wild. How interested are you in a hydrogen-powered tractor? That's like being strapped to a rocket ship that goes really slow. Anyway, lots of great stuff. I encourage you to go to RealAgriculture.com and check it all out. 4 to 5 videos being launched every single week. Okay, let's take a break here on RealAg on the weekend. When we come back, let's have some fun and talk about fall activities, including where hunting fits in that and a whole lot of other stuff as well. I got a bit of a revelation for you as well. You're listening to 650 CKOM and 980 CGME.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Smith of RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern for The Agronomists, Canada's only live, interactive, agronomy-based show. Each week, we answer your most pressing questions with a rotating panel of agronomists, researchers, and extension staff from across Canada. Join me Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, or head to realagriculture.com/live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin, host of the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com. Throughout the year, on the Soybean School, we'll bring you timely agronomic video content from planting to harvest, from the latest agronomic research to the latest in production technology. Check out our massive video library on YouTube, RealAgriculture.com, or download the audio podcast versions wherever you get your podcasts. The Soybean School is brought to you by Pride Seeds, BASF, and Syngenta Canada.
Secure your farm's longevity with Farmer's Edge. Elevate soil health, optimize costs while maximizing yields, and embrace the future of agriculture with Farmer's Edge Fertility Services. Visit farmersedge.ca/farmers today. Okay, RealAg on the weekend. I'm your host, Shaun Haney of RealAgriculture.com, also host of the RealAg Radio podcast. We're talking about a lot of different fun issues here today. And you know what? I actually should mention that one of the things, we were just talking about autonomy. And one of the things that I have noticed, this is a perception. I don't have any study data or surveys to talk about in regards to this. But when I remember like 5 years ago, when we used to bring up autonomy, I used to hear a lot, yeah, but I love driving the tractor. Yeah, but that's like, yeah, but that's when I like get to see all my fields. Or, yeah, but, I'm going to push back. I don't ever see us leaving driving the tractor. I think that's kind of changed. I think we're seeing a little bit of a different mindset. I think that's a lot of it's being driven by the labor shortage. Now, here's another thing. I do hear from some of you that are what I would call lone wolves, the one-man band, right? Where you've really optimized your acres to your resource capability being yourself. Maybe it's like it's a spouse team on the farm, or maybe it's just you, right? You always, I will hear from these people and they'll say, because there's a lot of them out there, they will say, autonomy does not fit for me because I do it all myself anyways. I don't have labor issues. And that's also where I think that's a misconception. I think that's a misconception because I think that actually autonomy could play a real advantage for you because you're able to replicate yourself, right? If only I could clone myself is what a lot of entrepreneurs say. Well, boy, this allows you to do that. So I think autonomy plays just as much of a role, and in robotics, they will play such a big role as that part of the industry evolves with the large and the small farm. In some ways, it may be it's that mid-sized small farm that may reap some of the big rewards early. Time will tell, but yeah, very, very interesting stuff. Don't just push it away and say it doesn't apply to me. Think about how this impacts your business, okay? Or how it could in a positive or in some case maybe a negative manner, but at least think about it. Okay, I mentioned that on RealAg Radio Podcast on Thursday, we do our Farmer Rapid Fire. I was talking to Mossbank, Saskatchewan's own Sherilyn Nagel. And love Sherilyn. Many of you know Sherilyn. She appears lots on Gormley here on this very network. And we were talking about hunting. And sometimes I like squirrel, get way off track with some of the topics. It was really fun, and we were talking about hunting. And, of course, her daughters are really into hunting. And her husband, David, also hunts all the time. They've done, it's kind of a big family activity. The family gets around it, and it's kind of a big deal. And it kind of got me thinking about, are there other like fall activities that have such tradition that go with that? And I had said to Sherilyn that, a bit of a revelation, that I've never hunted before. I've never been on a hunting trip. It was funny. Sherilyn's right. Are you against it? No, it has nothing to do with that. I just didn't come from a family that went hunting. We did a lot of fishing, just never did a lot of hunting. And I sort of like, you've heard me talk about snowmobiles before. I did a ton of snowmobiling when we were younger, but it was flat land snowmobiling, right? It was like open that sucker up and let her rip through the pasture. It was not going in the mountains. You people that do the mountain stuff with a snow sled, terrifying. Same going up on top of a mountain trying to hunt mountain goats and grizzly bears. That doesn't sound like a lot of fun. Sounds like a lot of work. But duck or goose hunting, that sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, a lot of fun. Deer hunting too. It'd be great to get, because I think this is really sort of in some ways, an unappreciated tradition in how it brings urban and I'm thinking about more from a rural setting, brings rural people together. I watch some of the hunting shows that are on TV once in a while when you're flipping through the channels. Really, really cool. How about going on like a turkey shoot in the South? Oh, those turkeys are the size of grizzly bears. Anyway, I would love to hear some of your hunting traditions and how it brings your family together, because I think there's a lot of you out there. And if you're also interested, I guess you could share some of the horror stories having to deal with hunters on your land. That's also the uglier side of it. There's some bad scenarios that I hear about all the time that really are quite unfortunate, and some people just don't understand this thing called property rights, and might be a good idea for you to ask before you go on someone's quarter section. I don't know. That's just me thinking about the ABCs of common sense. And what do they say about common sense? They say common sense is not that common. And people prove that on a daily basis during something like hunting season. So you can share those experiences with me by sending me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com, or you can call that RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. While you're giving us feedback and sharing some of your hunting stories, you can also give me your opinion on how you feel the carbon tax is impacting your business, and why you think it should stay, why you think it should go, what needs to happen. Do you support what Premier Mo is doing with Sask Power and leveraging that to not have to collect on the carbon tax anymore? Let me know. I want to hear that feedback and get your opinions. And the more we get, the more we're going to try to use on Tuesday's RealAg Radio podcast as we're at the APAS AGM. Make sure if you're there, you stop and you say, hello, Shaun, listen to RealAg on the weekend, a fan of Real Agriculture. Love to meet and interact with the audience all the time. And check out RealAgriculture.com for all your information, news, and insights on what's happening in the world of agriculture. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with RealAg on the weekend here on 650 CKOM and 980 CGME. Cheers, everybody.